So, Pre-Cal, how do you and your friend want to do this?
Welcome back to being welcomed back to République. I mean, you know what I mean. In the last 3 videos, we've seen what happens if we choose Zega's approach of simply shooting everyone, which, to be fair, did get us what we want. Today though, we're revisiting that decision and taking a more diplomatic approach.
We choose Murray.
Let's rewrite history. First, we connect to their relevant criminal databases and delete their bogus charges. Then we'll degauss the computers to seal the deal. This starts with the degauss gun. Run it along a computer, and you'll erase the hard drive. More specifically, you'll erase any criminal charges these men are burdened by. But to get the degauss gun, you need to get inside Derringer's office. To get into his office, you need Omni Level 5.
I turned that off for a reason.
And I turned it back on. The Pre-Cal and her friend need top security clearance to pull this off.
Okay. Does anyone think that sounds safe?
Go ahead. Upgrade to Omni Level 5.
Omni Level 5 is exclusive to Murray's path. Also, there's a whole other camera in this room for some reason. I don't know why they bothered. Anyway, pay close attention to the video that plays when we upgrade.
You're ready. Head to the location in map view. Find the degauss gun, and from there I'll point you to the computers that need erasing.
I cannot believe you're sending her to find a fake gun.
It's not a fake gun, Daniel.
Oh, it's a turkey made out of tofu. What's she gonna do if she runs into trouble? Throw it at someone?
Who says she has to do anything?
Hi. Among other things, in this video, we will address the truth of episode 4.
Do you hear me?
I hear you. You sound different.
The accent, yes. Just part of a dangerous game I played for too many years. A game I never intended to involve you in.
You involved me to save when I took your phone.
We're glad you did, kid. It's yours now. A keepsake from your time in this fragmented world. You'll need it when you get to the next one.
Last night you told me the outside world was dead.
I told you what you needed to hear. And what anyone who was listening to us wanted to hear. The world beyond Metamorphosis is very much alive. But we can talk about this later. Make your way to Derringer's office.
How do I find it?
All of the stench of cheap cologne.
It's inside the Prizrak Command Center. Your friend can show you the way. Good luck, both of you.
Omni Level 5 isn't really a very exciting update, mostly because we get it right at the start of the episode. But notably, it does give us an extra battery chunk to play with, which is nice. There is a story behind my decision to check my collectible stash here, but it's not a story that I care to relive anytime soon.
You made it. Derringer's office is upstairs. Grab the degauss gun, but be careful. The Prizrak have adopted a more direct control over certain cameras in the area. If you see one emitting a red beam, do not step in its path. And if you do hide, the response time will be swift.
Murray's path is our canonical introduction to the red camera mechanic. As such, an extremely sensible first move is to go and find the nearest data broker terminal and buy the extra 5-second upgrade immediately. Fortunately for us, there's an observation room almost immediately as you enter this area, and we don't even have to walk through the guard's patrol route to get to it, so this is very easy to do. Welcome again. Good luck. Alas, I can skip the data broker's reunion poem, but there is absolutely no way to skip this slowly scrolling list. I'm even pressing the mouse button, all it does is make it stutter. I don't think the devs ever expected anyone to try and dump this much stuff in one go.
See anything you like. Recharge your battery by siphoning power from other electronic objects. Extend the time you take over Prizrak control cameras. Leaving so soon.
And with that, we're in business. As discussed, our first task is going to be reaching Derringer's office. This is not really very difficult, even without the overtime upgrade. A single red camera is our only obstacle of any note, and the guard downstairs, in keeping with the grand tradition of video games, isn't really very into the whole looking up thing. So this is basically a freebie.
You're in the right office. The degauss gun is in a wall box on the other side of the room.
Yup, it's finally time to grab this thing.
Good work. Now we can erase the charges pending against the Prizrak at Terminus. When Derringer made them loyalists, he also made them fugitives. To abolish their records, we need to access certain criminal databases. The databases are spread across 3 computers. The closest one is downstairs. See if you can find it.
And so now, the main loop of the Murray branch. We find the computers, we do the hackings, and then we destroy the computers. It's somewhat of a misnomer to say that degauss guns were ever really ubiquitous. But the process of degaussing will be an old and dear friend of anybody who's ever owned a CRT monitor. Of course, these days not a lot of people own CRT monitors, other than players of Super Smash Bros. Melee. In any case, a degauss gun is really just a high-powered strobing electromagnet. And yes, they are used for bulk erasure of magnetic storage media, like hard drives. Have I mentioned it's a very stupid idea to leave Hope standing in front of red cameras?
Subject needs intelligentsia. Move to apprehend.
Getting spotted by one will cause the nearest guard to stride confidently towards your location.
Get your hands off me!
I'm Captain 3908.
Why does this particular guard have the ability to effortlessly own me?
The escapee is in confinement.
Amusingly, the fact that we're not carrying any contraband means the little cutscene with the metal detector wand doesn't even play. What a weird oversight. You know who is carrying useful stuff though?
Let's go for the steal. Good idea. Going in for the steal.
I will never ever get tired of this.
Nice. Our main taser. That could have been bad. Good idea. My battery was running low.
Now, where was I? Right, the Murray route gameplay loop. Possibly you might already have noticed the computer we need to hack. It was briefly visible while I was panicking over being an idiot about red cameras.
Looks like you found it. The first loyalist we need to clear is Benedito Costa.
Our goal is simple. Find this man's criminal record.
He's a Brazilian national. Go ahead and plug that in. Let's see if we have enough on him to find his name in the system. There are more results than I was expecting. We'll need to narrow our search significantly.
Or we could just erase them all and be done with it.
Daniel, don't you have something else you could be doing?
Probably.
I am not about to clear the records of 131 fugitives just because you are feeling lazy. Child, you and your friend need to find more on Benedito. Log out and scrub the office for information.
You may wonder, as I did, whether you can just click these fields and type in whatever. You cannot.
We'll need some usable data on Benedito. Exit the database and search your environment for clues.
In order to complete our objective, we're going to have to actually learn things about our loyalist friends. And as you may have guessed, this is going to involve the green intel.
I wasn't there then. I spent the summer in Rio, worked the Olympics.
You were in the Olympics?
Not as an athlete. I drive a taxi for 2 weeks.
You could just say you played basketball. I would have believed you. Probably hear that a lot.
No, you are the first person to ever mention it.
How tall are you?
2.03 meters, almost.
What's that in feet?
Like 6'8". Surprised you could fit in a cab. Wasn't easy. A truck is more my style.
I heard the overseer has you painting.
This is true. I'm making portraits for his private dining hall.
You paint his portrait yet?
Not yet. That is the last one I do. Be careful.
What do you mean?
I mean, be careful. I heard the last guy he had making off for him sculpted the statues in the atrium. When he was done, the overseer had his eyes blinded with lye. I do not believe this. I have seen the statues. They look good.
They look great.
Then why? Why would he blind a man for doing such a good job for him? So that man could never do a better job for someone else.
Yeah, spoilers, Treglazov is a fucking psychopath. More importantly, we've picked up an actionable vital statistic about Benedito Costa. The second piece of intel we need is back in Derringer's office, which means it's time to show off one weird trick that Prizrak hate. Watch this. It might not have escaped your notice earlier that the threat indicator sign in this room is lit up in a very conspicuous shade of red in our OmniView, and also that cables run from it, also lit conspicuously red, to every red camera in the room. I'm not sure what the game would have us believe is the electronic setup here, but the practical one is much more straightforward. We can use our degauss gun to deactivate the signs, and in so doing, return the cameras completely to our control. Important caveat, degaussing takes time.
You don't have any family?
Orphaned.
Orphan. Good. Makes the job easier. Says here you used to drive a truck.
Yes, for Logistica, a company in São Paulo.
You like to paint?
Very much.
Good. Got a bedroom suite that needs a fresh coat.
I do not do that kind of painting.
What the hell kind of painting do you do then?
Art. Portraits and landscape.
Nah, I don't need a portrait painted. I need my bedroom walls done. You can do that for me?
Yes, sir. Suppose so. Sir.
What is it?
Why do you make me a loyalist to paint your room?
Benny. May I call you Benny? Sit back down. Thing is, here in Metamorphosis, we wear many hats. Today, sure, you're painting my room, but tomorrow, you may be the victim of a horrible accident for asking stupid questions. You see, Benny?
Derringer?
Yes, sir.
Your loyalist candidate there. He says he's an artist.
Yes, but
But nothing. Will not have this young man housing away his creative potential on cheap whitewash in that unventilated cavern you call a room. An artiste must be free to breathe in every sense. Young man, you said you paint portraits.
Go ahead, speak to him.
Yes, sir.
Splendid. Darren, send that Prizrak my way.
Yes, sir.
Spoilers, Derringer is also a psychopath. Oh wait, we already knew that. With all the green intel collected, we're free to try our luck with the database again. I mean, technically we were always free to do that, but, you know, now we can actually do something.
Alright, I'll try this again. Got it. That's in. That's our loyalist. Let's see what fake charges Derringer saddled him with. Select Mr. Costa's criminal history at the top. Museum heist.
He did tell Derringer he was an artist.
Guess you could say he really painted himself into a corner.
Okay, Daniel. Really?
Yeah?
I hate to be this person, but could you?
Sure.
Yeah, would you just stand over there, please?
I'll be here all night, folks.
That's what I'm afraid of. All right, let's erase Benedito's criminal record.
As in any good database GUI, a nice flashing delete button is on offer. And that is quite a typeface to use on it.
Good. His record is erased. And with it, hopefully, his will to fight for Terminus. Now we'll degauss this computer so Derringer can't re-access the database. Just run the degauss gun over the computer.
The separation of CPU unit from monitor makes it duly difficult to find our target by eye. Fortunately, it's highlighted yellow in OmniView.
That should do it. Well done. I've pinpointed the location of 2 more computers. The nearest one is in Cooper's office.
Cooper.
I know you want to save him, kid. But it ain't in the cards right now.
I'm overriding the door locks on the other side of the room. Head through there now. And keep an eye out for any usable data on the 2 remaining loyalists. Their names are Fisher White and Rohit Rathore.
The rest of this video is going to be pushing slowly but purposefully through a lot of areas we've already seen before, while taking little interludes to listen to plot conversations and scan green intel items. Consequently, this is the perfect time to speak a bit about episode 4. I said right at the beginning of that episode that it wasn't real, even though basically everything we read, heard and learned during its course is real. It's open to interpretation exactly what we the player are seeing during episode 4, but all the same, assuming it isn't real creates a gap in the game's chronology. And in this gap, we lose track of 2 very important entities, those being Hope and Murray's phone.
This is completely idiotic.
Yeah, like most things around here. But you have to do it.
I don't understand this language.
The thing you need to know about English is it doesn't follow its own rules very well.
Kinda like Derringer.
Can I ask you a question? Are you dyslexic?
Maybe. Why?
Well, you keep confusing your right and your left. You do that in Portuguese too?
I don't know. I haven't had to write more than my name since I was 14.
You also may have dysgraphia.
How do you know all this?
I used to be an English teacher.
Seriously? Why did you come to Metamorphosis?
It was hard finding work. Plus, after my brother's death, I wanted to turn my brain off for a while.
Sorry to make you turn it back on.
It's okay. I want you to pass this loyalist entrance exam.
Why?
Misery loves company.
Our encounter with the demon server in episode 5, which notably we only see during Murray's path, gives us a slightly anticlimactic answer of what happened to Hope.
I can't get this open.
To wit, on reaching the surface, she was immediately apprehended and captured, then held in Derringer's office before ultimately being taken to the headmaster's office. Unambiguous, straightforward. But what about the phone? The phone, it turns out, is the keystone that holds my entire interpretation of episode 4 together.
There's the computer there.
So let's talk about the phone. We know, again based on the Demon Server video, that Hope dropped the phone on the ground when she was arrested. And we know that when episode 5 begins, Treglazov has the phone. We know this twice over because he uses it to call us. How, then, did that phone, which was dropped on the ground, come to be in Treglazov's possession?
Who did your ink?
My brother.
He a professional tattoo artist?
He was. He's gone now.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Older or younger?
Twin, actually. Older by 14 minutes.
What happened to him? If you don't mind my asking.
He drowned. Fell through the ice in a lake up near Yellowknife, Northwest Territory.
You Canadian?
No, Alaska.
Close enough.
And I guess I'm not even that now.
That's right. You're a citizen of Metamorphosis. Lucky devil.
Now, it's not hard to imagine that somebody just found that phone and picked it up. People do that. But I don't like the fact that we have to imagine that.
This computer's connected to the FBI's criminal database. The loyalist's name is Fisher White. I don't know much else about him. It's up to you and your friend to fill out the fields. You found him. Select criminal history like you did before.
He killed his own brother?
He didn't kill anyone, child.
Exactly. Smart dime store fiction from the mind of Quinn Derringer.
Go ahead and erase the false charges. Okay, good. Let's log out and degauss this machine. Same as before. Run the degauss gun over the computer.
The theory that some guard found the phone isn't internally contradictory or anything. It just, to borrow a line of thinking, is an overly simplistic explanation of only some of the facts.
Good work. There's one more loyalist to set free. Let's find that last computer.
I have a different theory in mind. One which, I think, accounts for all of the facts. And conveniently for me, is going to require some explanation. I think that, for all its unreality, Episode 4, in its own inimitable way, still showed us something that did actually happen. Obviously it did not show us what literally did actually happen. You know, because one of the things we saw was a teenage girl getting brutally murdered and then waking up unharmed and uncaring in front of a CRT television that had been set up outside in the pouring rain. Gonna go ahead and write that one off. But I think it got the broad strokes right. In particular, during her arrest, Hope did indeed drop the phone and the key, remember the key, to the ground. And the whole thing was witnessed by a mirror. The mirror was wandering about after Zeka freed them all. That mirror then proceeded to poke about and cause a little bit of trouble, before finally encountering Treglazov, who, well, shot her dead. And, of course, took back the phone. This theory is supported by a mountain of circumstantial evidence. To begin with, there's precedent for some of the things that we saw in Episode 4 having some basis in reality. Notable case in point, the conversation between Zeka and Mireille.
More mail for you, Rathor. Thank you. That's probably the last one.
My nephew, he writes to me a lot.
What's with all the Joker stamps?
It is a running joke with me and my nephew. He calls me Jokera. It means Joker in Hindi.
Well, Joe Kara, you can forget about receiving any more letters from your nephew or anyone else.
What do you mean?
Don't you know you're a loyalist now? And your loyalty is to this place and this place only. No more communication with the outside.
What? For how long?
However long you got left in this world.
Not only did it turn out that Zega and Mireille were in fact working together, we saw, in the Zega path, that Mireille actually referenced the literal words of that conversation, notably his comment about the trick coins. We've heard multiple characters, most notably the librarian, describe the area immediately outside Metamorphosis as being the garden, and we know that it has some kind of water feature in it that's big enough for Wheat to have drowned in. We heard Treglazov personally corroborate most of what we learned in episode 4 about the purpose of the mirrors. And speaking of Treglazov, the gun with which he shot the mirror is the same Tokarev service pistol we saw him take out of his desk in episode 2 and carry to the surface. Finally, there's the data broker who tells us in his narration at episode 4's close that this moment, and I quote, has happened before.
Good idea.
Add all of this up, and I am convinced that while episode 4 is indeed not real, it's a hell of a lot less not real than it makes itself out to be.
That's some poker face you got.
Sir?
I tell you, you've been made a loyalist, and you give me your best impression of a wall.
It is acting experience to credit for that.
Acting?
Yes, sir. In Bollywood.
You famous back in the real world?
No, sir. Very minor roles. But that was a while back.
A stare like that, you're probably pretty good at Texas Hold'em, too.
I do not play poker.
Don't like cards, huh?
I do not play cards because I dislike cards. I do not play cards because I like them too much. If you catch my meaning, sir.
Gambling junkie.
Recovering, sir.
Interesting.
I can't help but note the irony in this line of inquiry. Having started from the position that episode 4 is not real, we've nevertheless found ourselves having to argue, to borrow a quote by means of a backhanded upside-down argument, that everything shown in it is actually true, simply because that's what we have to believe in order for certain other important things to make any sense.
Single file, stop crowding me, people. Ronit Rathor. Rohit. That is me. You didn't fill this out right, Rohit. What did I... 2 boxes under I color. But I do have... Use a new form, fill all of it out. Again. No, look at me. Do you see? Are those prescription lenses? I am not wearing contacts. It is called heterochromia iridum. Look, I don't care. Your form is standard. I'm not going to make it unstandard for you. So, what do? I don't know. Pick a color. Next.
All of which drags us kicking and screaming towards our confrontation with the ultimate tension at the heart of episode 4. Namely, what the hell is episode 4 exactly? What is this thing, framed so compellingly as fiction, and yet so clearly filled with so much truth? It almost feels like we're discussing a work of scripture. In fact, scripture was arguably the running theme of episode 4's collection of banned books. We had plenty of literal works of scripture. We had the Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. No Quran though, somehow. We had the Divine Comedy and Siddhartha, which engage heavily with religion. And then we had the Origin of Species and the Communist Manifesto, which aren't exactly scriptural in nature, but can at times, rightly or wrongly, be read as such. One thing is definitely certain. Episode 4 is heavily preoccupied with religion. It's even brought up by Drs. Amash and Peretz, who, I think, we can fairly safely assume, are respectively Muslim and Jewish. Also notable, it's set in a graveyard. Finally, and I did mention this at the time, episode 4 does not begin with the traditional phone call. Instead, it begins with, well, some kind of software glitch. In particular, it resembles the reboot screen we see every time we upgrade our OmniView software, except it repeats the word error over and over again. It seems that someone's experiencing a nasty system crash. Now, as it happens, there is a broad category of experience.
There's the computer.
Which ties together moments of dire existential crisis, spiritual and religious overtones, preoccupation with death, and confusing dreamlike renditions of real experiences. In other words, near-death experiences.
Good idea. My battery was running low.
Episode 4 being contained entirely within a near-death experience is a beautiful and elegant explanation. It posits a single, concise new idea, which addresses or explains away the entirety of what would otherwise be an enormous body of contradictory evidence. It also raises one last question, and it is a big one. If episode 4 is a near-death experience, whose is it?
This database holds the criminal records of Rohit Rathore. Again, we'll need more than just a name if we're going to find the right one. That's the one. Poor Rohit. He has such a kind face, too. Alright, let's see the damage. Select his criminal record. Knocking over casinos. Unlikely. Derringer really outdid himself with this one. Okay, let's erase these lies and move on. Erase this Prizrak's bogus charges now. Well done. Now we'll degauss it just like before.
It might shock you to learn that I have a theory about this too. One that explains who's having this experience, how we're involved, and even why they're near death in the first place. But it's going to have to wait.
That was the last of them. Head to the atrium.
Our plot tasks are complete, and the conclusion of Murray's branch awaits.
Stop. I'm sorry. There's one more matter that needs our attention. I wanted to wait until Daniel stepped out.
Where is he?
Probably starting a structure fire somewhere. But listen, I need your help. Head back to the office space you just came through. Go to the back of the room and look for a computer near the wall of fingerprint scans. We have one more history to erase.
Another loyalist?
Not exactly.
While we kinda sorta backtrack to our last surprise objective, rather than theory craft about matters existential, I'm instead going to talk about something about the level design of episode 5 that I love. Zega and Murray's paths each take you through one of the respective branches of the path leading from the library back to the atrium. On Zega's route, the most significant obstacle is the Prizrak barracks, while on Murray's route, you deal with pretty much the entire security sector. Both of these areas are notably hazardous. The barracks are cramped and crowded with guards, while security is full of red cameras. But on Zega's path, you can recruit half the population of the barracks into your rebellion, and on Murray's path, you can use the degauss gun to neutralize the threat posed by the red cameras. When you reach the atrium, you can, of course, finish the episode there and then by heading straight to Terminus. Or, you can backtrack into the other area and go and get all the collectibles you missed. However, if you do that, you will have to deal with that area without the help of the gimmick that makes it easier. By designing the explorable area of episode 5 with these tools in mind, the developers were able to create a space in which either half can act as a critical path of one difficulty, while the other half acts as an optional secret area of a higher difficulty. The way they did this is transparent, organic, and in addition to all that, asymmetrical. In conclusion, video games.
Name this time is Miranda Poe.
Who is she?
An old friend who passed away some years back.
If she's dead, why do we have to erase her charges?
Hope asks excellent questions. Perhaps you've already guessed the answers. Also, of course Treglazov has a computer that can just casually backdoor into the CIA. Why wouldn't he?
Let's look her up. Her eyes were blue.
I feel like we've heard the middle name Azalee somewhere before.
Her date of birth was June 11th, 1982. Nationality was American. Place of birth, Virginia. And that should be enough. Go ahead. Search. That's her.
That's you. That's...
Go ahead and bring up the criminal charges.
Derringer?
Had nothing to do with this. This one's all true. Every word of it.
What do you want us to do?
I'm asking you to erase it. And never mention it to Zager. Daniel. But I suppose that's up to you.
Why did you do it?
I was young. Stupid. Fell for the wrong person. Love is nothing but regret that travels back in time and catches you when you don't know any better. All things end badly. Or they don't end.
I've done things I'm not proud of, too. I understand.
And I'll understand if you choose not to erase the charges.
The game offers us a choice on whether or not to erase Murray's criminal record, or should I say Miranda's. I considered leaving this to a vote as well, but if I did that, I'd have to make a follow-up video that would be like 4 minutes long, so I'm gonna have to decide this myself.
I understand your hesitation.
Personally, I'm inclined to take pity. I find her story of remorse compelling, especially in the light of all the effort she's gone to deal with the loyalists non-violently, when she could just as easily have gone along with Zager's plan to simply shoot them.
I understand your hesitation.
I say let's give her a second chance.
Thank you. You've given me a second chance when we get out of here. Now, let's leave this and go to Terminus.
Incidentally, Murray's criminal record is the only in-game mention I've been able to find of Haplo Industries, Treglazov's technology corporation on the outside. It comes up quite a few times in the manifesto. It seems to be a mashup of Google, AT&T and Palantir, with just a hint of Boston Dynamics if the content of their TED Talk is anything to go by.
I don't trust that. I'm not sure about that.
Hope. Anyway, they're comically evil and secretly own most of the planet's network infrastructure. And, obviously, they have defense contracts with the US government. Oh, and you'll love this. Their name is a reference to DNA.
So much destruction.
Yes. I'm not sure what the statues did to deserve this. Take the stairs on the side. They'll lead to the elevator to Terminus.
In retrospect, both Zager's and Murray's routes have a lot of good things going for them. Both routes offer up some engaging guard encounters, and also some interesting perspective on different factions within the Prizrak. Zager also gives us a chance to catch up with Bowen and Chung, while Murray offers us some closure on her own background. All told, there is a lot of good stuff in this episode.
Are the Prizrak leaving?
Not yet. I'm about to inform them now. Loyalists protecting Terminus. This is Mireille Prideaux. Lay down your guns and leave. You have been cleared of all illegality. Your false charges have been erased. You have my word on this. Do not sacrifice your lives for something you don't believe in. Do not die in the service of a madman. You are no longer under the blunt thumb of Derringer. You are no longer the subjugated of Metamorphosis. You are free men! Our plan is working. It looks like the Loyalists are standing down.
It bothers me enormously that the music stutters when we shift between cameras in this scene. I don't know why it does this. Anyway, this sure seems like a better outcome than in Zega's path, right? I do wonder what the implications are for the other Prizrak. The ones we haven't recruited in this timeline. Especially Bowen and Chung. A lot of fates are left unaddressed.
Very good. And because of your efforts, you and your friend won't encounter any Prizrak resistance. Take that service elevator to the top of Terminus.
It isn't immediately obvious, but if you go into OmniView, you can see that the Loyalists have actually removed all of their armor and just left it here and wandered off. Anyway, that's Mireille's path. Ultimately, I'm not sure if the two branches are supposed to be a dilemma of some kind. It certainly seems as though Mireille gets arguably the golden ending, where nobody dies needlessly and we get to feel good about having done some good for some people. So maybe the presented choice is instead meant to be between restraint and catharsis. Even after everything we've seen that attempts to paint the Prizrak in a sympathetic light, it isn't completely unreasonable to think that there might be people who consider the moral status of the Prizrak to be so closely tied to that of Treglazov as to make them beyond sympathy. Mireille's green intel does contradict that somewhat, but then you would only know that on a replay.
Watch your step.
And that ain't a figure of speech, kid. It's a long way down.
Good, you're back.
What are we doing up here?
Do you see the hatch on the top of Terminus? You'll need to raise it to view the control panel. This panel controls the cooling system for Terminus.
Now, obviously, in this LP, I've been able to have it both ways by going back and showing both branches on separate save files. Simply by virtue of how the game's save system works, it's pretty unlikely that any one player is going to see both branches. As such, only one of these branches can really be considered to be canon. As to which, well, I'll leave that open to interpretation. Although I did record the ending on this file, so make of that what you will. Anyway, next time, there will be some kind of ending.